Build professional skills this semester with Adobe Creative Cloud and create standout work both in and out of the classroom. Save big on professional creativity tools. Students get 65% off Adobe Creative Cloud, including Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere Pro, Acrobat Pro, and 20+ creative apps. No matter what project you're working on, Adobe Creative Cloud apps can help you take it to the next level. Visit adobe.com/student to learn more.
Hank's the family fixer, always with his tool belt. But living with prostate cancer, he needed help. He asked his doctor about Xtandi enzalutamide. Xtandi 40 mg tablets treats men with prostate cancer that has spread to other parts of the body and responds to a medical or surgical treatment to lower testosterone. Xtandi may cause serious side effects: seizure, a brain condition called PRESS, allergic reactions, heart disease that can lead to death, falls and bone fractures, swallowing problems, or choking that can lead to death. Stop Xtandi and get medical help at once if your face, tongue, lip, or throat start swelling. Tell your doctor at once if you faint, have a seizure, quickly worsening headache, decreased alertness, confusion, vision problems, chest pain or discomfort, or shortness of breath. Xtandi can cause harm to an unborn baby or miscarriage. Use birth control during and 3 months after Xtandi. Common side effects include muscle and joint pain, feeling unusually tired, hot flashes, constipation, less appetite, diarrhea, high blood pressure, bleeding, falls, fractures, and headache. Talk to your doctor and visit Xtandi.com.
The basketball playoffs are here on Prize Picks, the best place to cash in on the action. The app is simple. Pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code FIELD, that's code FIELD, and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code FIELD on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. Win or lose, you'll get $50 for just playing, guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader, like that car riding your tail. Or if you're tailgating right now, all those cars doubling as kitchens and living rooms are on AutoTrader too. Are you working out and listening to this ad at the same time? Well, multitasking pro, cars like the ones in the gym parking lot are for sale on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.
Come meet me at the Musial with Alan and Daniel. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. Everyone come gather round, listen to your favorite sound. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We'll talk the games and all the rest, about the team that we love best. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We're gonna talk about the Cardinals all night long.
Good evening. Welcome into another edition of Meet Me at Musial. I'm your host, Daniel Shoptaw at C70. We're getting closer to Alan Medlock returning to us at the beginning of June, but until then, we still have some excellent guests on our way, and that includes tonight's co-host in the other chair. That's Richard McGill. You know him from playing Catch Pod. Richard, how are you tonight?
I'm great, Daniel. I appreciate you having me. I mean, you know, you can tell Daniel's getting closer, or Daniel, you can tell Alan's getting closer to being back when the guests start getting worse. So that's,
I let you pick when you came on, I think.
No,
so
that's true. That's true. No, I love doing it. I tell you every time I'm on that you guys set the standard for what Truman and I were doing and for the good, clean, positive podcast. So you and Alan and you and Tara and now you and David, you do a great job, and I'm just happy to be among a long line of great guests. I mean, you've had some great shows this spring, so appreciate being here.
Well, I appreciate that. And before we get started in on the Cardinals, though, I think we ought to talk about your co-host who graduated from high school this week. How is Truman? How was the graduation?
Graduation was okay. A little long speeches. You just kind of like, let's come on, let's move along. But no, I think we messaged that day, and so he graduated Tuesday night, which was the series finale of Andor. And so we were just dying to get home to watch that. I mean, that kind of took precedent over the ceremony for me and him anyway, not his mom or sister or
Right,
grandma.
yeah.
But yeah, he's good. He's just done a whole lot of nothing this week, and yeah, we stayed up pretty late that night because we watched 3 episodes of Andor and then Rogue One after it. So we were up till
Well,
about
you're
3 in the morning.
you're ahead. I still have not had a chance to get those last 3 episodes watched, and I'm looking forward to doing so. But
It's well worth it. Trust me.
yeah, for everything I hear, it's
Yeah,
really good
yeah.
rap and
Well,
ending. So
and I'm not the only one that's had a graduate, right?
well, not yet. I have one
Oh,
tomorrow.
yeah,
Tomorrow.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I mean,
by
by
the time some people listen to this,
yeah, yeah,
some
yeah.
people listen to this that may be she
Right.
may have been graduated, which she is giving one of those speeches. So I guess hopefully hers is not too long. Yeah, she graduates tomorrow afternoon, and they split it up here because it's big enough that there's a morning or a early afternoon and a
Oh,
late
wow.
afternoon.
Yeah.
So she'll speak at both of them. We'll go to the latter one because that's when she'll actually walk across, and yeah, then we get to deal with that whole empty nest thing.
Yeah, us
And
too.
so,
Us
yeah,
too. Yeah.
yeah. At the
So,
end of the summer, people talk about, oh, you got to get ready for that empty nest, but they're still with you for until August, right? I mean, I don't know when Truman's actually packing up and leaving, but it's not going to be like tomorrow.
right. It's mid-August when he'll get to move in his dorm. So, yeah, I mean, we're going to soak up the time and maybe take a couple trips this summer, and it'll be hard for me.
Yeah.
Haven't done so much with him, and we're figuring out a different path with playing catch. So we actually haven't recorded probably since late fall. And so we may of what we're talking about doing is doing more writing, maybe a Substack or something like that, and each of us contributing. He's looking at doing maybe sports management or something like that at Ole Miss, and eventually going to law school, but trying to major in something that he likes, and so maybe sports journalism as a minor. Or we don't know,
Right.
but he's wanting to write some more. He doesn't have the confidence that I think he should on doing a podcast. I think he's far better than some people that are doing it, much less 18-year-olds. So,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
but we're going to do something and kind of expand on what we've done. So I've started prepping all that, but we haven't launched it yet. So.
I look forward to seeing what it was. So you're right. I mean, Truman, y'all will have a really, really good show, really enjoyable show
appreciate
that
Yeah.
was different than anything else out there, and I do hope that you'll have some way of getting back out on it.
Yeah, and I talked to him. I'm like, look, this will make you look better if you're doing something in this lane that you've got experience, and so maybe I can convince him into doing it. But if nothing else, we're going to ride, and he'll do some, some graphic design stuff that he likes doing. So something different, but we're looking to expand at least.
Yeah, well, that's good. Anyway, look forward to seeing what that turns out to be. The Cardinals have expanded their lead while we've been talking here.
I see that now. Yeah.
So Cardinals are now up 7-2 on the Royals here in the top of the 6th inning on Friday night's game. And Richard, I know I wouldn't say that we were both kind of maybe realists. Some of us more optimistic than others about this team. I don't think anybody in the podcasting writing space, if you will, for the Cardinals expected them to be in the position they are right now as we get closer to Memorial Day. Just knocking on the door of first place in the NL Central, a plus, I guess there'll be 3 or 4 games, 5 games up on the 500 if they were able to win tonight, and beating some good teams while they're doing it. man, I tell you, it's been a lot of fun to watch them over the last couple of weeks, especially.
Yeah, and I'm very much, I would say, I think fall into that realist category. I mean, you've got a team that doesn't, they spent what, $2 million in the off season
Right.
on Maton, and it was maybe some addition by subtraction. I don't know, but what I really was looking forward to was this runway that some of the younger players were getting. And while a lot of that focus was on Walker and Gorman, who really haven't done anything, you're seeing the Herrera, you're seeing Victor Scott II. I mean, you're seeing Donovan and Newtbar kind of take that next step maybe. And Wynn's been great. Started off really slow, but you look past that first week and a half or so, and he's been tremendous. So I was looking forward to that. I think my low expectations have made it even more enjoyable season, and I think because those guys are thriving, and even a Libertor. I mean, nobody expected him to really kind of be the leader among the starters so far, at least statistically. So it's great. I still wonder if they have the pitching to get there, but it's fun right now. It's very enjoyable. I hope people start showing back up at the park. But I think it's fun just watching these young guys, and I think even if they start to slip, I think if people can focus on that, it's still going to be a very enjoyable season. I always say a bad day at the ballpark is still a good day. So, that if you love baseball, there's a lot that you can enjoy in watching this team play.
And that is absolutely true. And we've talked about that some early on, is the fact that even when they were struggling, even when they had slipped, kind of, we were like, oh, here, it's all back on expectations. Even then, though, they were a more exciting and a more fun team to watch than they had been the last couple of years, which was kind of station to station, wait for, watch two good pitches and then swing at a bad one. Maybe you'll put up a couple of runs here and there. This team has had a more diverse approach, a more disciplined probably approach, maybe a little bit more aggressive approach than we've seen over the last couple of years. And again, you put that along with the speed and the personalities that we have on this team, it is a lot more fun to keep track of these guys and follow them than it was probably since, I don't know, 21 or 22.
Yeah, and I think you kind of touched on it, that there's a different approach at the plate. Whether that's Brant Brown or not, the hitting coach. I think everybody believes it is, but it seems like they're looking for certain pitches, and they're being very selective, as opposed to last year. I mean, you just saw a lot of fastballs right down the middle that they're taking, and then they get behind in the count, and they've got to chase, and now it's like, okay, we're going to be selective, but if we get our pitch, which is usually the fastball down the middle or in the zone, then they're going to jump on it, and I think that's refreshing to see. I think the thing that Cardinals fans obviously appreciate is good defense, and they lead the league in outs above average, I believe, and it's really solid everywhere. I don't think there's a kind of a weak link anywhere. Catching may be not well. It's certainly not what we were used to for 2 decades, but Contreras has been really good at first base, save a play or two here and there, but Arenado is still well above average at third, and Wynn, I hate to even say this, knock on wood, but I believe has not made an error yet this year, or maybe one, and Victor Scott's like third in outs above average among all baseball players. So you're really starting to, and I mean, you look at I talk about Walker struggling, not defensively.
Right.
I was very skeptical that he would ever be average defensively, and now I think, I haven't looked at numbers on him, and it's still early, really, but I've been surprised at some of the plays he's made, even this week. and I think that says something when
Yeah,
a
yeah.
young player, I mean, still 22, struggling offensively, but has made strides defensively big time, and he hasn't let his offensive struggles follow him to the outfield.
No, and that's big. It's been huge. I mean, to see him, it was funny. David, my co-host on Gateway, talked last night about how I think it was Wednesday night, how the idea that Jordan Walker could go in as a defensive replacement was not unheard of, right? I mean, because Alec Burleson was out there, and so obviously Labar,
Yeah.
but still, I mean, last year that would have been a flip a coin, right? It might as well just leave him out there because Walker's not any better.
Right.
Now Walker's, you're right, he is above average out there. It feels like to me,
Yeah, eye
what we
test
have
for
seen.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, and has made some good plays coming in. He's made some good plays going back on the ball. There was a play earlier this week where it looked like Scott got a bad jump in center, and it looked like it was his ball. And then even the camera, you don't see Walker for a little bit, and then he just flashes in and makes the play. And it's like,
Mhm.
oh, well, that wouldn't have happened last year. And so, yeah, I think that says a lot about him. I'm I, it, I'm discouraged with his offense, but I'm not anywhere close to giving up on him. I mean, he's still 22, I think, and
Right.
you think of I mean, there's still top 100 prospects that are 22 or older, so
Mhm.
he's got time. I mean, it's frustrating that we haven't seen some strides from him or Gorman. I thought Gorman looked great at the end of spring and the first of the year, and he got hurt and he came back and he just hasn't gotten consistent play and consistent at bats and still has some of the same struggles. But I do think that, and those are the two that Brant Brown worked with the most in the offseason. And so I think there's still time to get where they need to be. Um, but the challenge is, well, now you're competing. Now you have to win.
Mhm. Mhm.
Do you play them or, just like with Walker? Burleson's hot right now this past week, and so you've got to play him, and so that hurts Walker's playing time. So, but still very encouraged with both of them. I'm sure they both have great attitudes with it, and I still think that. I mean, Gorman's 24, so still
Yeah, it'd be
both so
25.
young. Yeah, he may have turned it.
Yeah,
Um,
somewhere this year.
yeah. So, but everybody else seems to be doing at least what was expected, if not better, and
Mhm.
so that's really encouraging.
Yeah, it does feel like this team is at its 90th percentile outcomes, right? I mean that
Hmm.
pretty much anything. I mean, if nothing else, I mean, look and knock on wood or whatever, but the rotation of old guys, at least somewhat, has not. Nobody's missed a start for injury purposes.
Mm.
Um, I think, am I right on that? Because part of
I
me
think
thinks
so. Yeah, I think
part of
so.
me's worried about Sonny Gray, but that might have been spring. Anyway, I mean, basically, they've not needed to really. I mean, which is good because there's not a lot of depth at
Yeah,
Memphis, right? I mean, you've
yeah.
got McGreevy and then you've got Dakota Roby at Springfield, and that may be about it.
Yeah, with the injuries to the pitching and the
Right.
minors, that is about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's been good that they have been not only healthy but effective. But yeah, I don't think anybody expected that. And people didn't expect all of these guys to take a step forward, except for like you said, Walker and Gorman. Pretty much everybody else is taking that step. Burleson's just now kind of getting around to it.
Hmm.
Um, and the bullpen has been, except for a stretch, that stretch that was so inflammatory,
Hmm.
um, has really started to figure that out. And once it was, and that kind of feels like, once they sent Ryan Fernandez down, I don't, I hate to put it all on him because it
I
wasn't,
know, I know.
but you can trace it back to that. And it's, and Jojo Romero got straightened out and things of that nature. It wasn't all Fernandez, but, you know, it's like as soon as that happened, some sort of switch flipped and they've been pretty much lights out since then.
I mean, I don't know that anybody had Kyle Leahy as their top reliever coming into
No,
the season,
no.
and I mean, it doesn't matter when they put him in the game, who he's facing, right, left, whatever. He's been great. There hasn't really been a big drop off with Helsley. I expected a drop off just because he was healthy all year last year. He was elite all year. Even if he came down a little, that's a drop. But he's had a hiccup once or twice, but otherwise has been very good. Maton, for the most part, certainly worth $2 million. But like you said, JoJo had a rough patch there, but is back on track. And I think that's the thing. Pitching, they're only going to go as far as this pitching. And so if they do suffer injuries, McGreevy is going to be fine, I think, as a replacement. But if you get past that, I don't know that Roby's much more than a reliever in the majors. I hope I'm wrong, but just from the injuries he suffered, we'll see. But they're going to go as far as pitching, whether it's bullpen or bullpen and the rotation both have to continue pitching this well or better for them to stay in it.
Yeah, I think with Roby, he would have to go to Memphis and show he could start there before he could be considered a starter replacement. Yeah. Now, if they needed an arm in the bullpen, I think he could jump straight from Springfield.
Yeah, 300%. Yep.
Yeah, but if they otherwise, and I don't think they want to do that if they don't have to. But I mean, you never know what circumstances will dictate. But yeah, I think it's been remarkable to see that. Now, I think it is interesting, as you talked about a minute ago, how the Cardinals now balance this idea of let the guys play versus, hey, we're actually doing something. And I think we're seeing that in the fact that, Nolan Gorman and Jordan Walker are very rarely in the lineup together, right? I mean, they limit, because you put both those guys in there and suddenly you've got a bit of a black hole. You've got, a kind of, sputtering engine. It's like the lineup can handle one of them, but it can't handle both.
Yeah, and I guess with handedness, you can kind of play matchups there. But Burleson pushing more into it. He has to play right field right now because Herrera's kind of stuck at DH until he can get back behind the plate. And so it's just, one thing coming into the season, I just thought that they still had too many bodies. And this is kind of where you see, you've got Sajasi who came up and was great, and he has to get sent down because there's no playing time at all for him.
Right.
And so, if they get into a situation where, say, Gorman struggles into July, then you can see them switching him and Sajasi. And I'm excited about Sajasi, don't get me wrong, but he's got time. I think Gorman, you really got to see something out of him this year and kind of make a decision moving forward. So, yeah, I think right now, just based on whoever the starter is for the opponent each day is going to determine whether Gorman or Walker is playing, which is unfortunate because I'd like to see them get that runway, but you got to win right now. And I feel like Ollie's done a great job. I've never been a anti-Ollie guy. I think he's had some roster issues the last couple of years, but everybody blamed him when the defense wasn't good. Of course, he doesn't get the credit now that it's leading the league, but I think he's pushing the right buttons with pitching, when to take the starters out, which, other than Ryan Fernandez, but seemed like he was in every game there for a while. Yeah. But he's really pushing the right buttons of when to bring guys in, when to take them out. There was an example this week with Leahy, who came in and pitched almost 2 innings, I think 1 2/3, and faced some tough lefties, and then got to 2 outs, and I think the 8th maybe, and handed over a lefty to Romero, and then set it up nicely for Helsley. So I think Ollie's done a great job. I think the pitching or the coaching overall has done a good job. And you wonder how much somebody like John Jay has had an effect on defense, because we talk about Walker moving forward. I think Victor Scott's really taken steps defensively. I think he took, had some slow jumps last year or some rough routes, and I think that's greatly improved this year. And so, and of course there's consistency that always helps. I mean, you pretty much until the last week or so, you've had Newton left, Scott in center, and Walker and Ride, and they've all been healthy and played all the time and done well. So I think that also helps. And that's really all around the diamond, other than the 10 days or so that Wynn was out. But yeah, I think the coaching deserves a lot of pats on the back with where this team is right now.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair to say. It's always difficult to know how much a coach gets both credit and blame. And they usually get too much of both. But I think that you're right. I think that we've seen some wise moves. I think we've seen Ollie be very judicious in how he uses Miles Michaelis, which has been a good thing, right?
Yeah.
We saw that in his last start, right? He gets into the 6th inning, but the third time around's coming back around, and he gives a hit, and they don't hesitate to go ahead and pull him and not press their luck. I think maybe Ollie might have pressed his luck a little bit with Vellante last week, not tonight, but in the game against the Phillies, it turned out to be okay. But I think for the most part they've done. I think, and that's the biggest thing, right? I think Miles Michaelis, we have to give a lot of credit to him for doing better and making some adjustments, getting a little bit more swing and miss than he had been. But I think it's also fair to say that the coaching staff has made sure to not overexpose him in these games and let things get away from him.
And that's 100% true. And I think part of the problem, even in 22, but especially the last 2 years, this is a guy that was top 10 over the last 3 years in innings pitched. And at the time, they couldn't get starters going a full 5 innings sometimes. And so I think he was left in a little bit too often just because they were trying to save other guys. And I think it hurt because, I mean, over the last few years, that third time through the lineup kills them. Now they're at a position where your other starters are going a little longer, your bullpen's a little more sure, and it's helping Miles. And like you said, credit to him because he's kind of changed that approach, trying to get more swing and miss, or at least weaker contact. I think Katie Wu's article today really talked about that he's not getting a lot of strikeouts, but he's getting weaker contact because he's changing his sequencing and what he's throwing, and people are expecting him to be what he has been the last 3 years, and he's more unpredictable and throwing backwards sometimes or whatever. And so he's doing his job definitely, and I think he's been a surprise because people just wanted to cut him coming into the year. And I don't know where they'd be if they'd gotten rid of any of the pitching right now. I was in favor of trading Eric Fetty and Helsley and all of that. But right now I'm happy they're here.
Yeah, I think we all were like, we're willing to write this season off. And to give front office credit, they said, I mean, granted, how much did they believe it? How much of it is that just something you have to say? But they did believe that this team had, some potential in it. And it was fair. I mean, because we've talked about all those young guys and all the offense. I think a lot of us said the pitching's going to hold them down. And when the pitching is not holding this team down, it can go a long way.
Yep.
So, that gets us into, and I hate to do any of that because, this time last year, the Cardinals were playing very, very well. Right. And that's about the time, Mother's Day, they kick off this big run and they play like the best baseball in league wide for like a month and, are in playoff position until about the All-Star break and start to slide. But are close enough, as we know, to make a trade to add to the team and trying to get into the world. So it's hard to say, hey, what are they going to do at the trade deadline, when you look at it now. But assuming this team can kind of keep pace with what they're doing. I don't mean win 11 out of every 12 or something like that, like they look like they're going to, but still playing above 500 ball for a while. Do you add to this team, even though that's not necessarily the plan for this year? Is there a way? I mean, I think there's an argument to be made that you don't, but I don't know that there's a legitimate argument that will stand up in the real world.
Yeah, and obviously there's a lot of time between now and the deadline. I thought they should have traded away some guys last year at the deadline. They
Right.
didn't because they were in it, and as soon as the deadline happened, the bottom fell out.
Sure.
And so you've always got that gamble. I think, not to be pessimistic, but we talked about the injuries to all of the young pitching in the minors. What do they have to trade? I mean, catching.
Yeah.
Gosh, they've got catchers galore, it seems like. But, who's the pitching that they could trade? You don't want to do that. And so everybody can say, well, let's trade Walker or Gorman. But, I mean, their value's at their lowest. And so it's going to be interesting. I think the way maybe they could approach trades would be, hey, let's take on salary and not give up as much, simply because they cut so much salary in the off season. And so maybe that's one way that they could do it. They're not threatening any luxury tax. They're probably, I don't know where the payroll is. It's got to be at least 20 million below last year.
I would think.
So I think that's one way they could do it. Those kinds of trades aren't quite there like they were in the Jocketty area when you got McGuire or Rowland or some of these other guys. But it still happens, and especially from some teams that aren't necessarily high payroll teams, and they want to get out from under contract. That might be a way to do it. Now, if it goes the other way, I think you absolutely have to get rid of some other guys that are pending free agents. Fetty and Helsley are probably the two names that you would look to move. Pitching's always in short supply when the trade deadline comes around. So, I mean, first and foremost, you want everybody to stay healthy. Either way, you stay healthy so that you can win, or stay healthy so that you have trade value. So I think that's one thing that I'm just looking at right now. Let's keep these guys healthy. What do they need? I probably more pitching. So I can't imagine that they would go after any kind of offensive player unless you have a major injury somewhere. Whether that's win just because Barrero's basically your only shortstop you have in the system right now that could come up. You could fill in first base, third base, pretty much anywhere else. So I think they would have to look at pitching, and again with pitching always as a hot commodity, do they have enough to entice another team to get somebody? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be very interesting to see what they could do, because if you're right, it might be an overpriced veteran, but if there's more than a year on that deal, the Cardinals want to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because and they might, because next year didn't have a whole lot going for it in the pitching side of things, right? I mean, Michaelis and Matz are gone in theory, unless you try to re-sign one of them, probably Matz, the way he's pitched this year. But both
Fetty.
of those guys could be gone.
Yeah, Fetty
Fetty.
too.
Yeah, Fetty's. So at most they probably sign one of those guys, and then you've got Gray, and then you've got Palante, and you've got Liberatore, and probably McGreevy there. But if you had a, say for it, I mean, Scherzer's on a 1-year deal, I think, so that would be a guy. But if you had a guy that was a 2 or 3 year deal that is actually performing close to his salary, maybe you take that on, and you say, yeah, you give him a single A guy, and you take on all the salary. I checked; it looks like they're about $70 million under the first threshold, so they've got plenty of room, like you said. I mean, that would feel like it's either that or trades, hope that Alec Burleson continues to hit and then flip him for somebody.
Yeah, and that's kind of that excess that should have gone, or not should have gone, but should have been looked at in the offseason. And look, when Sonny Gray and Wilson Contreras said, no, we want to stick around, that really changed the plans of everything. I think they would have tried to have gotten, they tried to get rid of Arenado, or I shouldn't say get rid of. They tried to make a trade for Arenado. But I think they would have gone deeper with it if those two had agreed to be dealt. And when they didn't, then it's like, well, let's let the free agents walk. Let's try to compete. And so far that's worked out. If they do fall out of it, do you try to trade a Sonny Gray, or do you bring him back for $35 million next year to be a mentor? I mean, that's a lot of money for a mentor, but at the same time, he's got to pitch better than what he's pitched to have somebody, have interest in him. So even it's not just the Matzes or Fettys or Helsleys or Michaelis. It's hey, this guy's making a lot of money next year. We could spend it, get younger, that kind of thing. So a lot of different directions they could go. And like you said, it's way too early, but that's one of my favorite parts of the season, and not just for the Cardinals. I love watching what all the teams are doing, and I try to pay attention to some of the minor leagues, and unfortunately pay attention to the Chicago White Sox minor leagues, which you talk about poor development with the Cardinals, that White Sox run circles around them. But having some Ole Miss guys there, we paid attention to them closely. But I enjoy that, and so that's something that I'll pay close attention to, and talking about writing, that's probably what I'll write a lot about as we lead up to it. Now, we've done, Truman and I both love it. We've done shows where we take guesses at here's the trade deadline. Let's think who they're going to go after and what they might give up, and we've never been even remotely right. So. I can say I love it. I can't say that I'm good at it, but there's so many factors that teams look at that fans just don't have a clue on. And we can guess, okay, they need this type of player. We have no idea what the cost would be to get said player. So, but I enjoy it, and I'd love to see him make a run. I mean, nothing would make me happier. Am I optimistic that will happen? Not really. But I think the thing that, like I said, I've enjoyed these young kids, and that's what my expectation was going into the year. And so the way they've played has been enjoyable to watch, but then the winning on top of it. So I mean, this really is one of my favorite seasons, and aside from 22, it's probably one of my favorite seasons in the last decade, quite easily.
Yeah, and 22, of course, that's Albert, right? I mean, Albert and Yachty leaving, and then all that, all that emotion and nostalgia and in history that gets tied into it, but it didn't necessarily, and they won, but I don't know. Everything is overshadowed by Albert Pujols and that run that he put at the end. This is probably the biggest full team, because 21 had to be salvaged by that big winning streak at the end of the year.
Yeah.
20's COVID. I don't know how far you go back before you find a team that you really feel good about or really enjoyed. You like the team, you're glad they're winning. It was 22 especially, but over just everybody on the team feeling like it's clicking. Man, I don't know where you go.
Yeah, and listen, I'm a big speed guy in center, and so I think Victor Scott could be just a star for this team. Mason Wynn, same way, just great defense. Their personalities are amazing. If any of the off field stuff that you see that they're on camera, they have cameras following them around, or interviews. I love watching those two. And Walker's the same way. It's just he's just not having fun on the field right now. Right. But I think that adds something to it. Is you care about these kids, and I say that, and as I made fun of you and me earlier this week about being old and empty nesters. I mean, these are kids, but I think I've just bought into their style of play is what I like, their attitudes, the fun they're having. Um, so that's really been enjoyable.
Yeah, it's always good to have you on because you're one of the few people in the podcasting area that's older than I am. So I
You can
always
rub that in all
appreciate
you
that.
like. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I
yeah, I
appreciate
don't
that.
mind. Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, it is fun to see this, even if it reminds you. I'm just glad we don't have. I mean, like we see tonight, the Royals have Bobby Witt Jr. and we remember Bobby Witt. I'm just glad the
yeah,
Cardinals don't have a lot of those kind of guys on their
yeah.
team to rub it in a little bit more.
Yeah, a Toronto Blue Jay team that,
Yeah,
hey, this junior and this junior and this, I mean, I
yeah.
think their entire infield one point was former Major League Sons. So
Yeah, of course, the Royals also have Kevin Biggio from the
yeah,
Royals, and
yeah,
we all remember when Craig broke into the league. So,
and really
um,
did damage when they were in the
yep,
NL Central.
the
So
Killer Bees.
yeah,
Um, so, so as we've been talking here, Ivan Herrera has doubled and is coming around to score again. Um, Dane Perry has a thing up at his Substack today. Well, no, today was about Jordan Walker. I guess it was last week, but I read it today because I was behind. Talking about when do you make that shift for Herrera to be the DH? I know you mentioned earlier that he's DHing as he gets healthy, but we've seen him, he caught the second game of the doubleheader, and in theory, he could catch whenever. Um, but in an NL Central, especially in an NL Central that every team runs, right? I mean, they're
yeah,
like what all 5 teams are in the top 10 or 11 in baseball in stolen bases. Um, and the fact that Pages and Pozo have done well behind the plate, and you've got guys like Jimmy Crooks and others that are moving up that will probably not necessarily cause the problem this year, but in the years to come will cause, a backlog back there. Is it, I mean, do they just go ahead and bite the bullet on this already? I mean, it feels awful early, but it also, I mean, that's a really good bat that you might not want, crouching behind the home plate 120 times a year.
yeah. That's tough. I mean, that's really tough because I think right now he needs to be behind the plate more. I I know Pajes was better last year defensively. I don't think it was as much. And is it enough to warrant the difference in offense? Because Pajes is never going to hit. Um, and he comes up with big hits, but
Yeah,
consistently does not hit.
fair.
And look, he's probably a big part of what the success is. I mean, it seems like he's incredibly well liked by his teammates and probably the pitchers. Um, I don't know. I mean, it's hard with all these extra players on here. You talk about Gormans or Burlesons that need to DH some, or
Hmm.
um, I don't know. That's tough. That's really tough because I do think that your Crooks and Bernals and some of these other guys coming up are probably going to be better defensively, and the team has obviously put a lot more into development with Bloom coming on, and that was the focus. And I mean, they admitted that they didn't have guys working with Herrera and Pajes when they were in the minors defensively, and which is just staggering thought when you're coming off of a Yadi Molina for 20 years and that defense, and then you're not. It I know a lot of people think, well, they had him, they took him for granted. They didn't prep for anybody coming up, although Carson Kelly was supposed to be the next guy, and then Kisner,
Hmm.
but none of them matched defensively, and these guys certainly didn't last year. And a lot of that I think was Herrera's arm, the accuracy and the strength. And we just haven't seen enough this year. Has it improved? It looked like it. Um, but he's been out in DH so much. I want to see more, and so I feel like I want to see him more behind the plate. But man, that's tough. Yeah, and I mean he's 24, and to move a guy to DH at that age is tough. And maybe you think, well, maybe he can make that jump to first like Contreras. Well, Contreras has got 2 more years under contract after this. It again, it's that glut of players, and it's a good problem to have, but it's still a problem. And so, man, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that. Other than I'd like to see him just catch more, but you can't take his bat out of the lineup at all right now. I mean, he's just everything he hits just seems like it's hit hard, and he's hitting it to all fields, and um, everybody's been wondering about Gorman and Walker and that next bat, and nobody expected it to be Herrera. Although when you talk about a runway, I was looking forward to him this year.
Yeah.
I mean, he's kind of I don't follow a lot of the players on social media, but he's one of them that I do, and just the work that he shows that he's putting in the weight room or whatever in the off season is unbelievable. I mean, he's just so strong, and so he was one that I was certainly looking forward to. I didn't expect him to hit like he has, and certainly don't expect it to continue. I think he'll still be really, really good. But I think, if I'm answering the question, I'd like to see him catch more and not be pigeonholed into that DH spot just yet. I don't know. I mean, how do you feel about it?
I mean, yeah, I of course, being the traditional, don't really care for the DH. It takes some time to get adjusted to that, and we do have that mindset as old national leaguers that
Yes.
the DH was for a guy at the end of his career, just kind of all he can do is hit nowadays. So, but I also think that we've seen young guys take that on, right? On different teams, not necessarily the Cardinals. And, as much as the Cardinals like to, and Dane got into this in his article too on his Substack, as much as the Cardinals like to do that, soft, let Nolan Arenado DH before he takes a day off, or, they kind of rotate through it. Indications are statistically that DHs struggle when they're being used like that. Players come in and they don't hit very well when they're being used like that. It's when they get a chance to consistently be the hitter that they kind of find their rhythm and things like that, which I can understand somewhat, right? I mean, we know how it's different for a guy that pinch hits or things of that nature. Sometimes you just need that regular rhythm. I really hate them to lose Pozo right now. I mean, not that he's an all-star or anything, but I think he's a more than adequate backup with that bat. So I don't know that I would move him there permanently, but I have a feeling that we'll probably see him there more often than we see him catching the rest of the way. I may be wrong, but I think the knee injury might have scared them a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is legitimate. And it feels like it might have accelerated a timeline that they already had. Because I mean, I like I said, well, he's caught one game, could have easily caught tonight, right? And yet he's a DH. And so I just kind of feel like, maybe it changes. Maybe if the Cardinals start to slide out of the race and it doesn't matter, then they can spend the time and let him, continue to develop behind the plate. But I guess as long as they're staying competitive, they may need him more at DH than they do behind the plate.
Yeah. I mean, look, just keep hitting. I mean, if he's DH, I agree. I would hate to lose Pozo right now, and to the point that if they had to send a catcher down, I'd probably be more in favor of Paez. But like I said, what's that do to I'm not a guy that thinks that chemistry and the soft stuff doesn't matter. I do, and it's hard to measure the impact that the catchers, because there's no statistics on how does the game calling affect pitching, the relationships, the game planning, all of that, and so, which was always the thing that I was afraid of with Contreras when he came on, because I was against the signing because I didn't think he was good at it, um, and I still don't, but I'm glad his bat's here. And again, he's a personality that I think they need. He's got kind of that edge, but he's fun, and I think teammates love him. I'm glad he's here. I don't know enough of the other three. I don't know how pitchers feel about Herrera or Pozo or Pajes, but it seems like Pajes is just really beloved by everyone. And so while I say that I would send him down, I don't believe the team would. And
Right.
so then you look at you're possibly going to lose Pozo, because I would assume that I don't know. I don't know what options he's got. I know he's played
Hang on.
some, so I don't know if if they could even option him. And I should know that.
Pull that up. Let me pull that up. I think they may still have options just because I think he's only had one other time up in the major leagues, so that doesn't necessarily
I mean,
mean
that's what I
anything.
thought. But yeah,
Barrero, I know, is out of options, but let me just a quick. No, it looks like he still has 3 options left, so you
okay,
can send him down. In fact, a lot of people expected that, this last time, and then they sent Baker down instead. But yeah, I think the only guy is Barrero that you would
okay,
run the risk of losing if you send him back down.
yeah, yeah. That's another guy that I like that came up through the minors with a lot of a lot of lights on him, and got a lot of praise. And I was one of those that kept him on a fantasy team for 2 years till he burned me too many times. But there's some things to like about him, and I think he's a really good bench option for this team. I don't think he's a guy you need to send down. And so, but again, you're just talking about how many good players they have. I mean, I think the bench is certainly in a better position than it was at the start of the year, um, where it seemed like all you had was catching and first baseman really and Ciani. Um, and again, you talk about that. I think having all these players, but they're still winning, and people aren't getting the time, I think again speaks to Ollie's management of how he's handling the playing time. Everybody was fearful that Ciani would get starts over Scott, and that never
Yeah.
happened. And so I think players love Ollie. I think that he's done a good job with that. So with Herrera, whatever happens, I'm fine with. I mean, I'd love to see him at catcher more. And that's I need to read Dane's article on that, because for me, I've always thought of the DH with the Cardinals when you've got guys like Donovan, for example, that can fill in when if Arenado needs to rest a day in DH, okay, slide Donnie there. If I mean, crap, he's done it for shortstop this year, which we really didn't expect. But I mean, he could do it for corner infield, corner outfield, second, even short. So and you've got other guys that could do that. So JC was a guy. Barrero obviously he's played center some, and so I've always thought in my mind that the DH needs to be somebody that's giving these other guys, especially somebody like Arenado that may need more time off than he has in the past, some time to rest the legs or whatever. But I mean, it was probably they probably went all of April without a home run from the DH spot.
Yeah.
I could be completely wrong. I know they were the last team to get a home run from the DH spot.
It was not good, whatever it was.
Yeah. So, maybe that just having that consistent, and I agree. I mean, a DH for a 24-year-old is difficult because they've never done it. Same thing with bringing some of these guys up like Sajasi and having him sit the bench. These are guys that have been the 2, 3, 4, whatever hole hitter all the way through the minors, and now you get them up here and they're not playing every day, or but I could see what Dane's point is, and if you're going to put him at DH him all the time,
Yeah.
or whatever that sentiment is about just getting the consistent. I mean, I hate to bring this up because he really caught a lot of flack on it, but I think Rafael Devers had a point, and it's like, look, I've been a third baseman forever. Now you want me to DH, and it took him some time to get used to it, and he's used to it, and then kind of fought back against the idea of moving to first base. Well, he's never played it. You're trying to win, and he's going to struggle and all that, trying to learn it on the fly. But I have seen some things that talked about it takes time for guys to get into that flow as a DH. So yeah, maybe that's what they need to do. I'm interested to read that article. I have to do it later tonight.
Yeah, it's that's all of Dane's are very interesting.
He's
To look
great.
at.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think there's pros and cons, and I don't know that the Cardinals have to make a decision now, but and it's something, that catcher situation is something we have talked about for a while now
Mm-hmm.
in this off season of, or even before they moved Contreras to first, but even after that, it was still okay. Well, you got two guys now. You've got two guys coming up, and that was before what is it, Rainier Rodriguez, who's
Mm-hmm.
ways down
Yeah.
there, but he is tearing up everything now.
Yeah.
And that could be
Yeah.
another name that's on the thing in 2 or 3 years where he's knocking on a door, and at some point in time, I know we keep joking about making the whole team out of catchers, but we probably shouldn't do that. And
No.
although if they keep hitting as a group like they have been, maybe we'll figure it out.
Well, hey, Paz has played second now, so
That's right.
You never know.
You never know for sure. So, I mean, there comes a point where you've got to figure out what you've got, and it's just, I mean, that is one way to at least temporarily alleviate some of the issues, right? Because if Herrera's catching regularly, then there really isn't any reason for three catchers on this team, right? I feel like, if Herrera's going to catch, even 2 or 3 times a week, well, then, what is Pozo here for except for those, okay, well, we're gonna have both catchers in the lineup, and we don't want to run the risk of using your DH. But that feels like, a waste of a roster spot. Then again, there's not exactly anybody just knocking on the door down in Memphis unless you want to bring Luke and Baker back.
And that whole thought of, well, what if one of them gets hurt in the game and we've used the other one?
Yeah.
Look, Contreras can still probably get behind the plate, even though I'm sure he doesn't even practice it at all anymore. He can get behind the plate to finish a game. I mean, it's not probably exactly like falling off a bike and getting back on, but I mean, the guy did it for 7-8 years. I'm sure he could finish a game. I mean, if we're trusting Donovan to play shortstop, to finish games here and there before Barrera was on the roster, I think Contreras could do it. So I agree. I mean, if you move Herrera to catcher, you can't keep both of those guys. I'd rather have a little more flexibility in the roster, even if it was a Stiani that can come in for defense and running, or Sajasi again, something. But yeah, I'm kind of open to whatever they want to try. I don't think there's a clear answer, and it's going to be it's a very interesting thing. I haven't given it a lot of thought. I just kept thinking, they'll move him back to catcher once he kind of feels comfortable, but it may not be the case.
Yeah, I mean, it's still hard to know for sure.
Yeah.
As we get close to the end of this one, Richard, is there anything on this team that you'd like to talk about that maybe we haven't touched on tonight?
I don't know. I think, not really. I mean, we've touched on a lot of even the bench and all the pieces. I think it's going to be interesting. Like you said, just what happens over the next 2 months is going to dictate a lot of not just this season, but where they go moving forward after this year when Bloom takes over, and if you are in a position where you've got to buy, I think that takes pieces away for him to develop and to fill holes in the off season, and but you've got to try to win. I mean, I'm very much one of those that you just got to get in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Anything can happen, and we've seen the second wild card win World Series, and so I hate to give up. As much as I think they need to probably be sellers just based on this roster, I mean, I'm not going to pass up a chance to win. If they've got that chance. Truman and I are Memphis Grizzlies fans, and they barely made the playoffs and then got swept in the first round. And it's like, well, they missed out on getting into the NBA draft lottery. Well, yeah, but you want that chance to win, and I wouldn't take that away. So same thing here. I want to see some of the minor leaguers hopefully get healthy. I mean, you've got Tink Hintz, Quinn Matthews, Chirpy's out for at least a year. I worry about those other two though, and I know, Hintz is out for a little while. Don't know enough about Matthews. I don't know if they've been real public about it, but those are three guys that were potential 3 roster spots that injuries could completely wipe that out, which again gets into the, do you trade these young guys? Because you never know. Parades are cooler than prospects or whatever Casey Stern used to say. So, I think that's just the next 2 months is I really think it's going to shape. I felt like not making some moves for the future this past winter, maybe put this rebuild, retool, whatever they wanted to call it, kind of a year behind. And I think with the way they're playing, I was probably wrong, but I think that we're not just playing for this year right now. We're playing for what Bloom's going to do moving forward. And July, we've got the 5th overall pick, and that's getting a lot of play now as people, you're starting to see a lot more mocks and things like that. So it's going to be hard to make a wrong decision when you're drafting that high. And, I loved the Weather Holt pick last year. Loved it. It was funny because Truman it was his last year playing summer ball, and we're in the middle of a game, and wasn't a coach, but for that day I got pulled into coaching first base, and we're just watching the draft. It was lucky enough that his team had a long inning where we batted around, and it was okay. We saw Hagen Smith go 5th and Caglione go 6th, and it was just like before the Cardinals even announced it, we knew what was going to happen, and we were both hoping Weatherholt would fall to 7, and I mean, he's just jumping up and down on the bench, and I'm kind of trying to signal to him from first. And so again, the whole GM front office thing is something that I really enjoy, and that he does too, and what moves are going to be made. But it's that amateur draft stuff, and I don't get into it like some guys. I mean, there are guys that are far better with the minors. I mean, the OG Kyle is still great with it. And you got people like Blake and Kareem that have come along and just do amazing stuff. And they know the draft stuff better. But I really love paying attention to at least the first couple of rounds and really digging into some of these prospects. And while I'd love an Ethan Holiday to fall in number 5, because I just think the Holiday family is amazing and the stuff that they did in the community, and I'd love to have them back more. I don't think he's going to fall to 5, but there's some interesting pitching pieces that could be there. And some really good high school, the interesting college arms, and some interesting athletic position players out of high school. So I think it's going to be one of those 2 at 5 for the Cardinals, and again that's going to dictate a lot of what the direction of the team is this draft, and it's seeing Bloom's hand in the draft is as good as Randy Flores has been in the draft. What Bloom built in Boston, and you see their minor league system even after giving up two great pieces for Crochet. I'm excited to see what that development's going to be like. So some of that could be a mix. If we make trades right after the draft, you could see a really revamped minor league system. But um, let's win. Let's not make the deadline a trade off or a send off for some of these guys. Let's win and see what happens. So yeah, I think that's the thing is we touched on players, but for me, just these next 2 months are some of the most fun and leading up to the draft and the deadline.
If you were assuming you're right that Ethan Holiday's not there though at the draft, who do you expect, want, hope the Cardinals take at 5?
I haven't. I really haven't dived into it as much. Jamie Arnold was who's a left-handed pitcher at Florida State, is a guy that has fallen a little bit. He hasn't quite had the success that I think coming into the year. Then there's another. Really, the three college arms may be all lefties. Liam Doyle from Tennessee. I've joked about this on Twitter that I don't want the Cardinals to take him because he left Ole Miss to go to Tennessee, and I can't root for a guy that left Ole Miss. But man, he's talented, and he's been so consistent this year. He could be a fast mover too. There's some, there's Eli Willits is a kid that's a shortstop out of Oklahoma. So similar to he'd probably be by far the best Oklahoma high schooler if it wasn't for Ethan Holiday. But he's a guy that's been rumored to the Cardinals. Arquette, who's a shortstop out of Oregon State, is another one. Cade Anderson is kind of getting some mention with the Cardinals now. He's a left-handed pitcher out of LSU. So again, there's some pitching, some left-handed pitching out of colleges that could go quick. But then some of the other guys are, aside from Arquette, you've got the Willits, who's a shortstop out of high school. You've got Billy Carlson, who's a shortstop out of high school. You've got JoJo Parker, who's a shortstop out of high school. I mean, a lot of different ways they could go. And so, you don't draft need, in especially in the baseball draft. But man, you just wonder, with all these injuries that they've had, if they're going to look for pitching and particularly a college pitcher that could, be in Double-A pretty quickly and get to the majors quicker.
Yeah, that's kind of what I wonder, is because you're right, you don't draft for need, but the Cardinals have a lot of position players right now that are very, very young. And if guys are going to rise as fast as you would expect them to rise, if they're being picked 5th, it feels like they should go with a college arm. That said, again, sometimes you just get the best talent in there. And, even if they're playing shortstop now, maybe you can find another spot. And, in 2 years, we like to think that, this team is kind of set, but who knows? Somebody tails off, somebody gets traded, somebody gets, comes to free agency in a couple of years. I mean, you just never know. So, definitely worth watching as we get a little bit closer to that time. So
and some of those names that I read off, you can find that, I guess, Jonathan Mayo, MLB.com and MLB Pipeline put something out either yesterday or today. I guess yesterday. And so little description of each guy. There's a lot of sources out there, but this one's easy there's a link to it from the Cardinals page, and so you can kind of, anybody that's listening that wants to know a little bit about these guys, there's always a little write up under each one. But he's got Cade Anderson from LSU in his mock coming to the Cardinals, but that's the first time that I've seen that, and that's the highest I've seen Anderson going. So it's going to move so much, and it's so unpredictable, but it's, I encourage everyone to kind of pay attention to that, because it's fun, and you're starting to see a lot of these college guys are getting to tournament time now. So I think the conference tournament probably start next week, and then you start seeing World Series, and you mentioned a guy like Liam Doyle of Tennessee. I mean, they're going to be one of the favorites to get to Omaha. And so, again, can't root for him because he left Ole Miss and went to Tennessee. But, yeah, there's going to be a lot going on especially with those college guys that people can actually see these guys now. And so that's fun watching some of that for me.
Well, it has been fun having you on here, Richard. Again, it always is. And look forward to whatever you and Truman do next, and then having you back on at some time in the future.
Well, enjoy your day tomorrow. Don't cry too much. And I hope Sarah does a great job on her speeches. So I know you guys have a lot to be proud of with her.
Oh, I appreciate it. I appreciate it muchly. All right. Well, until next week, for Richard, I'm Daniel. Good night.
Good night.
Widespread stance, arms out over the plate. Bickford from the stretch. The 1-1 pitch. A swing, and there it goes! Left field, way back! That's home run number 700! Pujols hits a 3-run homer, and he hit 699 and 700 at Dodger Stadium on September 23rd, 2022.